Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me. Hope you had a good holidays and good Thanksgiving. Alright, well I wanted to show you something here. I replaced the 27 tooth stock sprocket with a 30 tooth sprocket. That's going to give me lower RPMs at highway speeds, and it's going to let me wind the gears out a little bit better. But I looked on YouTube and I couldn't find anywhere where anybody did any kind of explanation on this. I got a climber manual that goes with this, so that helped a little bit. But I just want to show you guys how it was done. First thing I did was I loosened these two bolts here that hold the housing for the brake. I loosened them up, took them off, and this will pull right out. There's another little screw back here behind the exhaust, and you got to loosen that one up and it'll just pretty much come out. It says in the manual that you got to take this cotter pin out back here and then pull this pin out and then take this out, but I never did that. I left this assembled right here. I took the rear exhaust off, completely off, and then the front exhaust I just loosened it up at the heads and then down here, and it just dropped down. And that gave me clearance for this. Then I went back here and I took these adjuster nuts and I ran them all the way to the end on both sides, and then I loosened the main axle nut, and then I just pushed the tire forward and the whole wheel went forward. Then I came back over here and there's 3 bolts that hold this casing on here, or this cover, and I took those and loosened them up. There's one here, and then there's one down there. I pulled this down and this will just drop down. If you want, you can take this this pedal and spin it all the way around. It'll give you more room. And got that out of the way. Once I got this cover off, it just pulls right off. This will come with it too. Then what you're going to see is this. You're going to see this sitting in there like that. Okay, what you do then is you loosen these 2 bolts here, and when you take those off, this plate's going to come off, and what that what that does is it holds the nut in place when you get it on there. And then you'll have this nut. I used a good wrench, impact wrench, and you're going to have to buy a 1 7/8 socket. It's a pretty big socket, and you're probably going to have to buy some adapters for it, because this was only a 1/2 inch, so I had to get a 1/2 inch socket to go in here, and then a 3/4 on the other end down here. So you have to get an adapter for it, and then it just hooks right up. Put it in there. Now these threads on this nut, it's normally lefty loosey, righty tighty. Well, in this case it's righty loosen and lefty tighty. So it's reverse threads on here, so be sure to remember that when you try to take this off. And of course it came right off, no problem. Take that nut off, and then you just work the sprocket off, and it'll come right off. Behind the sprocket there'll be a washer in there, and it's seated in there, and you just pull it out of there. What it does is it seats up against the something in there. But anyway, it'll seat in and out, and you just pull that out. Then you're going to have a gasket that goes in there. It's a seal, oil seal, and it holds the bearings in there and everything. Don't try to pry it out from the outside. Take a screwdriver, preferably a big one like this, and just stick it behind that seal and then pry it out like that. and it'll come right out. And the kit that you order for this, it'll have a replacement seal for it. And it'll also have a new bushing in there too, and it's a little bit different size than this one. And then what you do is you put the seal back on, the new seal. You put the new bushing in there, and then you put the new sprocket on. And that's pretty much all it is to it. Now when you tighten this nut down, when you tighten this nut back down, just put it finger tight and then put this on here. And what you got to do, oh yeah, another thing about this nut, it's got a shoulder on it. And that shoulder has to be facing the sprocket. You want it facing the sprocket like this. And then you tighten it down finger tight, and you put this on there. And what you want to do is line it up to these two holes. And you got to have between 100 and no more than 150 pounds of torque on there. And what I used was the regular old hand torque wrench. And now when you take this off, when you take the sprocket off and when you put it back on, you want to have it in first gear, and that'll hold it in place. And then you just torque it on. I got about 130 pounds on this. When you put the nuts back on, the main nut, you want to use Loctite red on the threads and on the sprocket. And then on these nuts, which go on there, once you get those lined up with the proper amount of torque, you just twist them on there. And you want to use Loctite blue on these. And then you get them down. And that's all it is to it. And it'll be sitting in there like that. Now when you put the belt back on, what I did was I put the belt on at the sprocket first. Then I went to the back and I started from the top back here. Now it's already on the front. And then I just turned the wheel and got the belt back on it again. But that was all there was to it. And I figured, well, since I got the bike in the house and working on it, I'll just go ahead and check my front wheel, make sure it's in balance, and go ahead and grease the axle. Well, when I was putting it back on, this axle didn't want to go back in there. And man, I played with it for about an hour. And finally I took some screwdrivers and expanded this joint here, which it's made for. It's made to expand. And it cracked on me. It's aluminum. It's made in Japan. It's a Harley Davidson, but it's probably the only Japanese part on this bike. And yeah, I know. And it cracked on me. But I got a new one ordered. It's coming in. I found it on eBay for less than $100. So as soon as that comes in, I'll tear this down, put the new slider on, and then put it back together, and it'll be ready to go. But that's the story. That's how it's done, basically. You know, like I say, I'd have an owner's manual or a climber manual with me, just in case you had any questions. But it's real simple to do. It took me about an hour and a half to do it, and that was taking my time. So that's it. See you guys when I start on that slider there.